Hello, and welcome back for another wonderful week of math for first grade. In today's lesson, we will be taking a look at how can you tell the difference between shapes. Come along, mathematicians, let's begin. My name is Mrs. Ward, and I am a kindergarten first grade ESL teacher for HISD. For today's lesson, you will need your pencil and paper. We will go through our introduction, warm up, vocabulary, and math lesson. We will be focusing on how can you tell the difference between shapes. I can identify and describe attributes of 2 and 3-dimensional shapes. For our math warm-up, I want you to take a look at this Mr. Handsome. This picture today is composed of shapes. I want you to take a look at it and think about some of the things we talked about in our last lesson when we were taking a look at 2-dimensional shapes. What shapes do you notice were used to create Mr. Handsome? Yes, his face is made out of a circle. His eyes were created using circles. His nose is represented with a triangle. His mouth is a circle. Where else do you see circles in this picture? Yes, the buttons on his shirt. What about triangles? Do you see triangles in Mr. Handsome's picture? His arms are made of triangles. What about rectangles? His neck is a rectangle. His legs are rectangles. Even his feet are rectangles. His body is a rectangle. Great job identifying the shapes. Even the cap on his head is a shape. This whole figure was composed using different shapes. But how can you tell the difference between shapes? That's going to be our guiding question for our lesson today. Here is some of the vocabulary that you're going to hear in today's lesson. 3-dimensional shape. 3-dimensional shape is a solid figure that has 3 dimensions: the length, the width, and height. Face. A face is a flat surface on a 3-dimensional shape. Edge. A edge is a line segment where 2 faces of a solid figure meet. We will be taking a look at how can you describe a 2-dimensional shape. When describing a 2-dimensional shape, we describe the shape by the amount of vertex it has and the number of sides it has. But we keep in mind that not all 2-dimensional shapes have vertex and sides. How can you describe a 3-dimensional shape? A 3-dimensional shape can be described by the number of faces, vertex, and edges that it has. Can you help me identify these shapes? Here we see some shapes that we saw in our previous lesson. Here are some 2D shapes. Help me put the correct name with each shape. Look at the first shape. The red shape is a triangle. Did you say triangle? Yes, the red shape is a triangle. What about the next figure, the blue shape? What's the name of that blue shape? Correct. The blue shape is a circle. What about the yellow shape? What do you notice about the yellow shape that helps you understand which shape it is? The yellow shape is a square. And the last shape, that green shape, is a rectangle. Did you get them all correct? Give yourself a pat on the back if you got all of the names correct. You helped me identify the triangle, circle, square, and the rectangle. Earlier, we said 3D shapes can be identified by their vertex, their face, and their edges. But which of these is the vertex? Which one is the face? And which one is the edge? Can you help me label it on this 3D shape? Help me move the words to identify and label the attributes of this 3D shape. Look at this blue square in the front. The part that has been shaded blue is representing which part? Is that the face, the vertex, or the edge? Yes, that is the face. At the top where you see the circle, we see a corner where two or more lines are meeting. So if you remember from last week's lesson, we said that is the vertex. And lastly, where two faces meet, we have the edge. Keep in mind when we are describing a three-dimensional figure, we can describe it by the number of faces, vertex, and can you help me identify these 3D shapes? Help me by labeling each of these shapes. Do you remember the name of each shape? The names are located at the bottom. Here we have sphere, cylinder, cone, cube, and rectangular prism. But I need you, mathematicians, to help me establish which name goes with which shape. Are you ready? Let's give it a try. Look at the first shape. What is the name of this figure? It looks like a tissue box almost. This figure is called a rectangular prism. If you said rectangular prism, then you are correct. Look at the next figure. The next figure reminds me of a canned good. Can you remember the name of that figure? It has a flat face at the top and the bottom. You guessed it, that is a cylinder. We are on a roll. Keep up the good work. Look at the next shape. The next shape looks like a box. That shape is a cube. Did you say cube? You guys are so smart. The next shape reminds me of a party hat. It also gives me a reminder of ice cream. You know why? Because it is a cone. Yes, this shape is a cone. And the last shape looks like a ball. What's the name of this shape? Yes, it is a sphere. Great work helping me to identify these 3D shapes. We identified the rectangular prism, cylinder, cube, cone, and sphere. All of these are three-dimensional shapes. Edges that the shape has. Is this a 2D or 3D shape? Think about what we've said about 2D and three-dimensional shapes. Is this shape flat? Does it have any faces? This shape has zero vertex. It has zero sides. It is a circle. It has no faces. So this is a 2D shape. Which of these shapes resembles a circle? Remember, a circle has no vertex and no sides. Yes, the red shape resembles the circle because it has no vertex and no sides. We can describe a circle as having no vertex and no sides. Is this a 2D or 3D shape? Look at this figure. What can you tell about this shape? It has three vertices. One, two, three. It has three sides. Does it have any faces? No. Does it have any edges? Is this a 2 or 3D shape? This is a 2D shape. It is a triangle. Which shape resembles a triangle? Remember, a triangle has three sides and three vertex. Look closely. Yes, the pink figure resembles a triangle because it has three sides and three vertex. Is this a 2D shape or a 3D shape? Think about what we know about two-dimensional and three-dimensional shapes. We know that 2D shapes can have a vertex and a line. We know that 3D shapes can have a vertex, a face, and an edge. We also know that 2D shapes are flat, and 3D shapes can have length, width, and volume. Most 3D shapes can roll. So what do you think this shape is? Is it 2D or 3D? This shape does have faces. It is a cylinder. Sorry, went too fast. It is a cylinder and it is a three-dimensional shape. Which of these pictures resemble the shape of a cylinder? That cylinder that we just saw looked like a can. Do you see any of these shapes that resemble a cylinder? Look at the first picture. Does that resemble a cylinder? No. What about the next shape? Does that resemble a cylinder? No, it does not. And the next shape does not resemble a cylinder. Does the next shape resemble a cylinder? No. What about the blue figure? Does it resemble a cylinder? Yes, it does resemble a cylinder. What about the next shape? Does it resemble a cylinder? No. Is the next shape a cylinder? Yes, it does resemble a cylinder. It is curved. It has a flat face at the top and the bottom. Does the neck shape resemble a cylinder? Yes. What about the neck shape? No. Does the neck shape resemble a cylinder? You guessed it, it does not. The dice? Nope, sure doesn't. And what about the last shape? Does it resemble a cylinder? No, it does not. How can you tell the difference between 2D and 3D shapes? We have learned that 2D shapes are flat, they have a vertex, and they have lines or sides. 3D shapes have length, width, and volume. They have faces and vertex. Can you help me put these shapes into the correct category? Which of them are 2D shapes? Which of those are 3D shapes? Help me sort them into the correct group. Where should we put the first shape? Yes, it is a 2D shape. We can tell because it was flat with no faces. What about the next shape? Yes, it is a 3D shape. And the next shape? The square is a 2D shape. The next shape, the triangle. Yes, the triangle is flat with no faces. It is a 2D shape. What about the next shape? Is it flat? Does it have faces? Yes, it has faces, edges, and vertices. So we know this is a 3D shape. The next shape, is it 2D or 3D? You guessed it, it is a 2D shape. The circle would go under 2D. It has 0 vertices. And the cube, is it flat? Does it have faces? Yes, it has faces, edges, and vertices. So it's going to go under 3D shapes. The sphere. The sphere looks a lot like a circle, but it is not flat. It is a 3D shape. And lastly, take a look at the cylinder. Is it a 2D shape or a 3D shape? Yes, it is a 3D shape. Great job sorting. Give yourself 2 claps and 2 snaps. Let's see if you were listening. What did we learn today? What do we know about shapes? Today, we learned that a shape must be a closed figure, that the lines can be straight or curved. We learned that two-dimensional shapes are flat. They can have sides and vertex. We also talked about 3D shapes. We said that 3D shapes can have length, width, and volume. They can have edges, vertex, and faces. Today we talked about how to tell the difference between 2D and 3D shapes. We also reviewed the features of some 2D shapes that we saw in our lesson on last week. If you remember from last week, boys and girls, we talked about shapes are all around us. We found shapes in our homes, shapes in pictures. Think about what shapes you can find in your home. What objects do you have that represent two-dimensional shapes and three-dimensional shapes? Get permission from your parents and see if they will allow you to collect some things in your house and sort them by two-dimensional figures and three-dimensional figures. Be sure to record your findings. You can draw pictures of the items that you find. Again, I hope that you learned a lot today. I enjoyed working with you on today's lesson about shapes. I hope that you're able to tune in again on next week. Remember that you can follow me on Twitter at WardSandy5, and I look forward to working with you again next week. Thanks for joining.